What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Gotta love that morning traffic. As you can see from the intro, I installed a 95mm throttle body from the LT5 ZR1, and I paired it up with a JLT Cold Air Intake, and it has a solar performance spacer that goes from 95mm from the throttle body up to 87mm to the mouth of the LT2, because I did not port it. I didn't want to deal with porting up into the seal and maybe messing that up right now. So anyways, so that's installed. I didn't want to do a video of me installing it because there's videos everywhere, and that's pretty simple. Like as you saw in the intro, it's like super fast. And anyways, we're gonna head out to the dyno. Ryan Stevens at Warning Performance told me we're good to go, so I'm gonna put on the dyno, make 2 pulls on 7th gear, the 1-to-1.
Watch out, vehicle on shoulder ahead.
And hopefully they still have the files from the previous ones, so we can compare from the last time we went to the dyno. So far, if you've been following me, you know the car last time with the headers, E85 and LT2 manifold, it made 477, I think, 477 horsepower, 476 horsepower, 480 torque. That's on standard smoothing. So that was a total gains of 80 horsepower and 63 torque. SAE smoothing, it did 463 horsepower and 466 torque for a total of 77 horsepower and 59 torque. So if you look at the difference between the two, the gains are there. So I want to go back. Hopefully we can get that last pool pulled up in the computer and we can compare it to this one, and hopefully there are some gains. We'll see if it heat soaks or not, but yeah, let's get to the dyno, do 2 pulls and come back and compare. The only difference I have on this time too is I have the R888R, so I have a drag radio versus before. I believe it was always on the supercar 3s. So that'll be a little bit different. When you dyno the car and drag radios, it sticks a little bit more, so the number is less. But we'll see if there's any gain. So see you back when we're at the dyno. All right, so here we are, Dyno Solutions. They have 3 bays. They have dyno there, rear-wheel drive or just forward. I mean, they just have like for 2 wheels. Over here, they have an all-wheel drive dyno. And then in here, they got a motorcycle dyno. And then, of course, they got all the bays to work on the cars. This is where I always come, so they should have my file. And even if they don't, it's always the same dyno. So, and here's the setup. Got 95mm throttle body, the solar performance spacer, and then of course the JLT intake. And we're gonna talk about the setup after we do some pulls. Car's been the same. That's the only thing that's changed. Looks so good. And then of course the other thing that's going to be different is going to be the tires. We have the R888 Rs 315s, so those are going to be grippy. I aired them up, so let's see if it makes a difference. But let's put the car in the dyno once I get it all set up, and let's see what it does. All right, I have the graphs here and the log. We're gonna go over it, but remember, a dyno is a tool, and I'm gonna show you the standard graph, the uncorrected one, just so we can see with the hot day what it did. And then we're gonna switch to SAE, so then we can see the gains versus the last time with just the LT2 manifold, headers, and flex fuel. And then we'll see the gains from zero, from when I didn't have anything stock, until now full bolt on. Remember, so I did the calibration was always to 3000 RPM. It was always the same dyno, and the only difference was this time I had the R888 wheels or tires. So take that as whatever. And then I did the 2 pulls back to back. So let me put up the graph. And before I even go on this graph real quick, I looked at the logs, and the logs has everything good. I already sent them to Ryan. He said they look good. I got all the timing. You know, I didn't pull timing because of heat. The manifold air temp was at 95 degrees, so that's okay. And yeah, looked at everything. From my perspective, it looks good. And then he said it looks good also, so it's gonna go have some fun from now on. Moving on. This is the standard smoothing. This is the uncorrected. This is based on whatever weather conditions was that day. I did 47 horsepower, 506 torque on that first pull, and then I did a second pull right after that, heat soak, and 486 horsepower, 496 torque. So it's still there. The torque, if you see, actually I'm not even going to get into this right now. I just wanted you to see that. That's the uncorrected on that day. All right, so as I go into the SA Smoothing 5, if you see, I have in the graph 3 lines. One is the stock horsepower, the second one is LT2 manifold, headers, and flex fuel, and then the last one is adding the 95mm throttle body and the cold air intake, the JLT Cold Air Intake. So I know on the torque side, it looks like there's a 30 torque gain at 3000 RPM because there's a spike at the beginning. But if you looked where I marked right there, that's kind of where it regulated right away. I don't know if that spike was, you know, kind of when they hit the gas, it feels all that torque all of a sudden. I don't know if that counts or not, but whatever. If we move forward onto the line, it's still, that's a 455 versus a 434. That's still like 21 torque right there. And if you look at the horsepower right there, right off the get-go, there's like a 13 horsepower difference. And as we move up the curve, if you look, I mean, if you look at the stock versus what it's now, it's super difference. But if you look at these two graphs, they're almost the same as you follow them. Let me see if I can point out where the torque was peak at around that. I didn't mark the 496. Well, I actually, at where the torque peak right there here is 486.6. If you look at the previous one, it was 464. So that's still 22, you know, torque over. And on the horsepower side, it is 389 and 408. So that's 19 horsepower difference. And if we move on, let me see if I have it like further down the line. If we look further down the line where the graphs start getting closer at the end, we still have a 476 versus 468. That's an 8 horsepower difference. And then in the torque, there is 431 versus 423. That's still 789 torque difference. So what I'm trying to say is, if you look at the peak numbers, you say, well, 30 torque, and at 3000 RPM, you just had that spike, you know, that's not real. But it doesn't matter, because when you look down the line, there's still more than 20 torque all the way, almost all the way down the graph towards the end. And in horsepower, there is gains all the way through the curve. And if I show you the SAE smoothing stock versus now, I should have marked that on the line so you can see the difference down the line. But I mean, it's pretty much what it says down at the bottom, because you can see the line, the big difference, and it follows all the way through versus the torque at the end, but the horsepower stays big. The torque starts hard and then it dies in the end, but then you're still making horsepower. All right, so now let's talk about the setup and why. Why did I went with a JLT Cold Air Intake versus all the others? And you all know that Camaro specifies on one of them that everybody likes, and why I didn't go with that one. So overall, we have a total 85 horsepower, 89 torque-ish because of that spike, but still, if you look throughout the curve, there's still over 20 torque there gains, kind of almost all the way through. And if we really think about it, right, if I would have paid for the 95mm throttle body and just the cold air intake and itself, it's just a 80 horsepower gain peak and a 30 torque peak. But when you go through the graph, there are gains higher than 8 horsepower, and there's not 30 torque, but there's still 20 somethings. There was like 22, 24, 26. It's up and down except for that one spike, you know. So there are gains. So why did I go with JLT? I was already looking into JLT because it has more flow. When you buy it, you need a tune. You can't just slap it on there, you know. Any cold air intake that you put on the car and it does not need a tune and the car will adjust a little bit for it, you're really not gonna get a lot of gains. I mean, look at my data. I put a cold air intake that needs a tune and there are gains. They're not huge, but there are gains. So imagine when you get this one, that the base price is 300, 320 versus all the others that are over 400 and you don't even require a tune. So I understand if you're not gonna tune your car, if you want your warranty, yeah, sure, get the one that's no tune and you get some gains, you know. But if you're gonna tune your car, why not get the one that's a little bit cheaper and actually has a lot more flow for the gains? So that's why I went with the JLT Cold Air Intake. And in actuality, I was thinking about doing the 95mm throttle body, and I had ordered it. But even the JLT Cold Air Intake, I was looking into buying it, but it's so hot in Florida. I was kind of thinking about it. Do I do it or I don't? And then it popped up on the marketplace for $125, so I couldn't let that pass. And when I picked it up, the guy gave me a box, and in the box there was a 95mm throttle body. So there was a ZR1 throttle body and the JLT Cold Air Intake for $125. I could not let that pass. So I got the spacer, the Solar Performance spacer, slapped it on, did the retune, so did everything for a pretty good price, and the gains are there. And also, we already went to the track. One day, hot, one pass, the car went 11.4, full weight, everything inside, with the wing and everything, full weight. If you know, the car had been to the track before and it did run an 11.4, but it was no wing, no passenger seat. So, and the weather was a lot better. Just so you know, Dyno's a tool, but we went to SAE corrected. We went over everything. The gains are there, and you know what to do, you know. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up. Comment, let me know what you think about all my standard SAE correction stuff, if it's even worth it or not worth it to you. I don't know, let me know anything you think about in the comments, and subscribe for what's coming up next. I have a track day, private track day, 2 private track days coming up, 1 drag racing, 1 circuit racing. It'll be in the next 2 months, but we'll definitely go to the track before then, have some fun with the car, and then yeah, see y'all next time. Peace.